Good evening, everybody. I hope you are having a great Monday evening. Thank you for joining me on this live research session on Twitch, where today or tonight or this evening, wherever you are in the world, we will be taking a deep dive into the matchup between Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Ribas, which is taking place this weekend at UFC on ESPN Plus 19. Now, I say that we are going to be taking a deep dive, but there is a very limited amount of footage available for us to work from on this fight. So before we get into breaking down how both these girls match up, watching a little bit of footage, talking about some X factors, let's actually show you, I guess, why this is going to be a tricky fight to cap accurately. So first of all, if we start with Amanda Ribas, she is 7-1 in her professional career, so 8 pro fights is a good amount of fights. However, she hasn't been that active over the last 4 years. In fact, she's only fought twice in the last 4 years, and she's only 26 years old, which means that she is going to be making massive improvements from fight to fight. And the problem with trying to assess Ribas' skills is that, her only fight in the last 3 years since back in 2016 ended in around 8 minutes against Emily Whitmire, and the vast majority of this fight was a fight that took place in very dominant positions. So, for example, a good 3 or 4 minutes of this fight was spent with Ribas having full control of Whitmire's back. So we didn't really get to see a lot of Ribas' skills. What we did get to learn about her in that fight was that she's got reasonably technical striking, reasonably good offensive wrestling, and she is definitely slick on the ground. She is primarily a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, which will certainly come in handy against Mackenzie Dern, who is also a very, very elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. Although it is worth saying, I will refer to this interview multiple times throughout this live research video, and Jesus Christ, who the fuck is disliking this video? Why would you dislike a video that much? It makes absolutely no sense to me. What assholes actually do this? On that note, boys, if you do like this video, you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button below. It would really mean a lot to me. It would help the channel grow. And also, throughout the video, drop a comment and let me know how you feel about this fight between Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Ribas. It's a good thing she's not fighting Amanda Nunes. Jesus Christ, that would not end well for her. But yeah, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this fight if you're betting it. What you think of our discoveries that we made together in this research video. And also, don't forget, if you're watching live on Twitch, you've got any questions throughout this video, drop them on the Twitch live chat and I will answer them as we go. But yeah, what a bunch of fucking assholes disliking this video. Anyway, I will leave a link to this interview video in the comments, not in the comments, but in the description below on YouTube. It was published today, where Ariel Helwani interviews Mackenzie Dern, and she talks about returning to action after a bit of a layoff after having a baby. So we'll refer to this. There's nothing that interesting within the video that I want to play you. A lot of the times in these live research sessions I'll play you like specific clips. There's nothing specific that I want to play you, but it's worth listening to if you're interested in this fight. And yeah, the one thing that was interesting about this interview in terms of what Ribas' grappling level may be, Mackenzie Dern was asked by Ariel Helwani how she thinks her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu will match up against Ribas' Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Dern just basically kind of in a nice, polite way said that there are levels to grappling, levels to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and even though, Ribas was a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on paper, there are different levels of black belt, and Dern had never heard of her on the actual hardcore Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu scene, which she kind of implied meant that Ribas might be a black belt, but it doesn't really mean much in terms of grappling. She's nowhere near my level. And if you listen to the full interview, it's 20 minutes long, you'll find that little segment in there. So, first of all, just need to make it very, very clear this week that this weekend, if you're a professional gambler in mixed martial arts, this is another very, very difficult week for us. We've got Bellator 230 this weekend on Saturday. So obviously, it's a big card as well. It's a big main card. There's 8 fights on the main card. So tons of extra fights to research this week. And also on UFC on ESPN Plus 19, it's looking like it's going to be a 14 fight card. I mean, this fight at the moment between Tom Gifford and Brock Weaver has been cancelled, but they're looking for a replacement for Gifford after Weaver dropped out. So if that fight does get cancelled, there'll only be 13 fights on the card, but usually they can get a replacement. So the average UFC card's got like 11 or 12 fights, and you'd be amazed how much it adds to your weekly workload, just having, one or two extra fights, taking it up to 13 or 14. So a mammoth UFC card this weekend, absolutely tons of fights to get through. Even more difficult because many of these fighters are decisionators, so it's going to take a lot more time to study footage on these guys. And then with Bellator 230 on Saturday, this is a brutal week. So not sure how many breakdown videos I'm going to be able to give to you guys this week. I'll try and get out as many as I can, but just bear in mind, if there's not that much content coming out this week, it's because I'm absolutely up to my eyeballs trying to research all these fights. But the best way to get hold of me, if you want to find out how I feel about the fights this weekend, check out my website, jump in the chat room. I'm online several hours a day. Come check it out. And of course, I will be researching every single fight this week, come rain or shine. So we were talking a little bit about why this fight is a difficult one to assess and a difficult one to cap, and we were on the reasons why Ribas is a difficult one to try and cap. And like I said, this fight, we didn't learn too much about her, and it was her first fight in the last 3 years. We're going to watch this fight together between Ribas and Jennifer Gonzalez-Araneda from back in 2016. But again, it was 3 years ago. She's 26 years old now. She would have improved a hell of a lot since she fought, Araneda back when she was just 23. So how much we're actually going to be able to learn from this fight, I don't know. We've got it loaded up here, though, I'm ready to watch. And also, I don't really want to watch any of these fights dating back to like 2015 and before that, because if you look at her most recent fight in 2015 against Poliana Viana, that was in November 2015, which is almost 4 years ago to the day, give or take a month. And, I mean, what are we really going to learn about a fighter from watching footage of her from 4 years ago? She's going to be a completely different athlete, completely different woman, a completely different fighter now. So it doesn't make sense to go that far back. It's just a waste of time, in my opinion. So we'll watch this fight. Maybe we can learn a little bit more about her. But again, I won't put too much stock in this fight because it was back in 2016, and it's also going to be difficult to assess what Mackenzie Dern brings to the table, because if you go back and watch her fights in LFA and Invicta, obviously she is a very, very high level on the ground. I mean, her fight against Amanda Cooper, you'd be hard pushed to find anyone that could sink a rear naked choke in as fast as her. I mean, Dern got her arm under Cooper's chin, light speed. I mean, it happens so fast you don't even see it. It's literally a split second. Very, very impressive. But if you go back and watch Dern's fights, like I say, in LFA and Invicta, she looks very slow, no offensive wrestling, no striking defense at all. She's very sloppy and clumsy striking. And she looks very, very low level everywhere apart from pure Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But again, these fights took place back in 2017. So she's going to have improved immeasurably since then. So we can't be too harsh on it, can't put too much weight on these performances. And then, of course, we've got this nice fight to assess here against Ashley Yoder from back in 2018, where, we should get a better idea of what Dern's capable of. But again, this fight was a UFC debut. Fighters never performed to the best of their ability in their debut. They've got octagon jitters to think about. A lot of fighters struggle to compete under the pressure of the bright lights of the UFC, and they never look at their best in their debut. So, I did notice improvements from Dern, particularly with her striking. She looked a little bit more polished than she did back in Invicta and LFA. But again, very, very sloppy, bad striking defense. But again, I don't want to be too harsh on her because it was her debut. And then the unfortunate thing is, in her most recent fight, which took place just 2 months after a matchup against Yoder, Dern's stand-up did look a lot sharper. She moved a lot better. She was throwing feints out there. Footwork was a lot better. But again, the fight ended in 2.5 minutes. So just like with Ribas, can't really learn a lot from that fight. So even though there's a decent amount of footage on both these girls, when you're in school and you're being taught in science about how to conduct a fair test, and ultimately the results from a test are dependent on the quality of the measurements and materials used and the people conducting the test, right? Has to be a fair test. And what I would say is the quality of footage and the information we have to work with in order to form an opinion on this fight is very weak, because the majority of footage we've got on Ribas is from such a long time ago, and the majority of footage that we've got on Dern to some extent is quite a long time ago as well, with these fights being in 2017. And, we can't forget that Dern's only 26 years old, same age as Ribas, I believe. Yeah, same age. So Dern's going to be improving at a rapid rate as well. And I always say, when a human, when anyone reaches the elite level of any particular thing in life, it doesn't really matter if it's playing the piano or being a pilot, whatever it is, to reach that elite level, you become very good at learning other things to a high level as well. And I think the fact that Mackenzie Dern has been able to reach such a high level in BJJ does say to me that she's probably going to be able to make big improvements in a short space of time in MMA as well, simply because to get good at anything in life, you've got to get good at learning from your mistakes. And obviously when you learn how to get good at learning from your mistakes, that transitions over into every aspect of life. So the footage we're trying to assess both these girls on is not that accurate. So now let's talk a little bit about X factors. But before we do, let's see if we've got any comments to go through. So super necessary. Love the username, dude. Are you going to give out your tips for free going forward? I'm not ever going to, it's not like... No is the short answer. I'm not going to give out my tips for free going forward. Basically what I do, the model that I work on is, it takes a fucking shitload of time to produce this content for you, and I don't get anything back. The ad revenue on YouTube's absolutely shit. Like I can show you here, if we have a look on ad revenue, for the last 30 days, I've made $140 in ad revenue. And, I put out fucking 6 hours of video content last week. And you guys don't understand the preparation and time and effort that goes into actually planning and producing these videos. The money it costs, the equipment, yeah? This PC was like $7,000. So it's going to take a very, very long time, even just to break even on equipment, right? So what I would say is, in terms of giving out tips for free, I'm not giving out tips for free, but the way that I do it is I research every fight and I produce breakdown videos for as many fights as I can get through in a week. And what I tend to do is, if I research a fight and I find a bet, I will post it on my website for all my members to see, and then I will make a video breakdown of it like 24 to 48 hours later, when the odds have usually declined, because we do have quite a big community now. We do move the odds. So, yeah, it's kind of like, I think $20 a month is a really, really small amount of money to pay someone for an incredibly large amount of work that they put into producing this type of content. So I do give a lot of bets out for free, but they always go to my community first, and the best way to get access to them is to be a member of my community. And also, I don't always have time to put out breakdown videos, right? Like sometimes I will send a bet out to my members like literally an hour or two before an event starts, when that's far too late to post a video. And that's because the odds are constantly moving, right? It's like, in order to record and upload and produce a video, that takes a lot of time, planning and effort and energy. And I don't always have the time to do that. So, by putting the bets onto my website, it's like a really fast, quick, efficient, snappy way that I can get information out to people, whereas it's a way more bigger, laborious task to produce a full-blown video. So what I like about the website is, when I research a fight, I find a bet, I can just pop it on the website straight away, bang an email out to all my members without having to fucking, do my hair, get dressed, you know what I mean? Get on the iPad, storyboard the video, plan what I'm going to say, get the lighting all set up, tidy my room up, you know what I mean? Get the mic up, get all the configuration right, hit record, write the title, the description, design the thumbnail and everything for YouTube, yeah? It's a pain in the ass. It's way easier for me to just fucking write a little bit out on my website, send an email out, much easier. So I will give a lot of bets out for free, but it's not the best way to get him, is basically what I'm trying to say to you. What else have we got? Jesus Christ. So Eveb M has just said that Mackenzie Dern won a BJJ match against Gabby Garcia. That is insane. Shlu22 saying Dern is looking in much better physical shape than before pregnancy. I agree, man. I couldn't believe it when I checked her Instagram out. We'll have a look at that in a minute. We've got it loaded up here, ready to talk about that. That's a great point, dude. Nice West, the great. Cheers, man. Thanks, everybody. Glad Adesanya made everyone a little bit of cash. John Neola has said money coming in on Ribas. I can kind of see why a little bit, maybe. We'll get more into that in this video. MC Kanye said, I've got a large bet on Masvidal at 1.8. Do you think it's a good bet? Honestly, dude, I will 100% be betting the Masvidal Diaz fight. I have a very, very strong opinion on the Masvidal versus Diaz fight, but I don't want to talk about it yet, because if 3,000, 4,000, one of my live research videos for last week with the Makhmet Muradov one had 11,000 views, and right now liquidity on these upcoming fights is so low that if I say, I think Diaz is a great bet, or I think Masvidal is a great bet, and just 1% of people that watch that video go out and max bet Masvidal or Diaz on their website, that's going to completely destroy the line. So I know it's really selfish of me, but I want to bet one of these boys very big. And if I tell you guys who I want to bet, because I can't bet him yet because the max bet limits are too low, the liquidity is too low. I need to wait until closer to November the 2nd, probably a day or two before the fight, before I can lock my bet in, right? And that's another reason why it makes sense to become a member of my website, because I'll also strategically time when I place my bets. So I'm not going to be betting Masvidal or Diaz early in the week until the odds are where I think they will be at their best. So if I see the odds improve all week on the guy that I want to bet, I might not bet him until 2-3 hours before the event. I'm looking to put my money in the best position at the best odds. And obviously videos aren't the most fluid method of communication for getting that kind of information out. So I do have a very strong lean on this fight, but selfishly I'm not going to share it until I can get my own bets in. Because right now, if I tried to hit the max bet limits on all these sites, the odds would get murdered and I would end up taking shitty odds. So I will keep that one for now, but we will get to it for sure. Lidosis has asked, how do you feel about a double between Vettori and Joanna? I'm not sure, man. I need to research those fights, dude. Alright, boys, let's get into this breakdown then. So, X factors were where we were going to go. First of all, and the biggest X factor of all, and we don't have to play this video, but it is kind of crazy how Mackenzie Dern is returning to action after having a baby just 4 months ago, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, right? Like, the return to action 4 months after having a baby is insane. Like, for all you dads out there watching, and there probably aren't any mums, but you know that, like, for the first year, the 2 years of having a baby, it is absolute fucking hell. And we're men, like, we get the easy side of the deal. You know what I mean? Like, the baby's not sleeping. When the baby does sleep, they'll sleep in like 4 or 5 hour sessions, which means you never get a solid 8 to 9 hours sleep, which means your sleep pattern's disrupted, you're tired all the time, you're cranky. You don't have time to eat properly because you're constantly busy looking after the baby. A lot of mothers as well suffer with, post-pregnancy emotional issues, being protective towards the baby and stuff. which might affect Dern's training. She might not want to go to the gym and leave the baby behind. There's obviously a lot of financial worries as well. If you look at Dern, she hasn't exactly fought very much. She's only had 2 fights in the UFC over the last 2 years. Even if she would have made decent purses in these 2 fights, I'm guessing she's not doing great financially because she's, a very, very young in her career with only 7 pro fights. So it's financial worries. Maybe that's the reason why she's coming back after 4 months. Maybe she needs the money. I'm sure a mother wouldn't want to come back to action that soon after having a baby. I mean, my wife would have taken 4 years off work if she could have. So that's a bit of a concern. Perhaps she's motivated by money. Perhaps she's coming back too soon. And to come back after having a baby after just 4 months is kind of insane, because having a baby is a mad, intense experience. If you've ever been to a childbirth, it is like something out of a horror movie. I remember when my wife gave birth, I honestly couldn't believe that a human being was able to go through that much pain and not die. It was horrendous. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. It is just freak brutality, an absolute savage. And that changes a woman's body forever. It changes their metabolism, it changes their hormone production, it does all kinds of things to the female body. They are never the same again. And historically speaking, I mean, this is not the first time that we have seen a female fighter return to action after having a baby. And what I would say is, almost always they look a lot worse after having a baby. Mega worse. Not physically, but just athletically. They're just so much slower. They're just not the same person. They've completely changed. Now, the best example I can think of this to illustrate my point is Alexis Davis. If you guys want to see what having a baby can do to a female, at least in the short term, and bear in mind, I believe Alexis Davis took 18 months to 2 years after having a baby to come back. But if you want to see athletically how much it can devastate a female, I believe that within this time frame here, somewhere around here, Alexis Davis had a baby. And trust me, the Alexis Davis that fought Cindy Dandois, I believe this was her first fight back after having a baby, or this might have been her first one of these two. Anyway, this fight against Cindy Dandois, go watch this fight and then go watch her fight against Jessica Ai. It is literally like watching 2 human beings. The amount it affected Alexis Davis is quite staggering. And since then, she has kind of got back to her old self. She looks a hell of a lot better than she did against Cindy Dandois. But at least in the short term, it absolutely devastates female athletes, at least in MMA historically, based on the examples that we've got to work with. So very possible that Mackenzie Dern could be underestimating the impact that this will have on her body athletically. Although what I would say is, when you look at Mackenzie Dern's Instagram, I don't want to sound like a dick with what I'm about to say. I'm trying to think how to say this in the nicest way possible. Right, Mackenzie Dern is a beautiful woman. She looks great, right? Obviously, everyone knows Mackenzie Dern looks great. But if you go back and watch her fights against Ashley Yoder, any of her fights in LFA, you go back and watch her last fight against Amanda Cooper, it is no secret that she's had a history of, I almost said weight issues. It's not weight issues because she's perfectly healthy, but a history of missing weight, like run-ins with weight cutting issues, right? And she has openly admitted to this being due to not the best diet, okay? She has openly admitted, even in this interview, if you watch it, towards the end, she says that in the past, she's young, she loves to party. She has come out and said that the reason why, she does have a history of missing weight is because she doesn't have the best diet, and she hasn't been that strict with her diet throughout her career. And if you go and watch her against Yoder and Cooper, again, she does look quite soft, okay? Absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning, perfectly healthy, amazing, just like a woman should look. But noticeably, she's quite soft in her fights pre-pregnancy. Now, if you look at her Instagram profile, She does not look like that anymore. She looks absolutely outstanding, very athletic, very slim, in way better shape than she did before she had a baby. So the point I'm trying to make is, historically, when a girl gets pregnant and then she returns to action after having a baby, athletically, her performance is nowhere near the level it was before. However, we always can work the general rules, and it's very smart to work the general rules. But if you look at Dern now compared to how she looked before, she looks way better now. Like way better. And I don't mean in terms of appearance. I mean in terms of, she looks like what you would expect a female fighter to look like, a professional athlete to look like. Absolutely incredible, right? So maybe she's going to be one of these outliers where the general rule doesn't apply, and she will actually use the time off having a baby to come back even better than she looked before. So generally speaking, female athletes decline hard after having a baby, at least in the short term, and it takes them many months or many years to get back to where they were before, and they often do. You look at examples like Marion Renault, Kat Zingano, Sarah McMahon. They struggled immediately after having a baby, then they got back their career back on track and looked great. You'd assume Mackenzie Dern was going to look very bad this weekend after coming back so soon, but maybe she won't. Maybe she will have learnt from the mistakes of previous fighters like Alexis Davis. Maybe she will have seen how much it's affected them, and maybe she has counteracted that by training very hard. She certainly looks like she trained very hard, and maybe she'll look better than ever. And it will be interesting to see which way it goes. That is for sure. Very interesting. She does, in her interview with Ariel Helwani, say that when she first came into the UFC, she wasn't really taking her diet that seriously, that kind of thing. Because when she would diet, she found that she'd feel hungry all the time. But now she's working with a nutritionist where her diet's on point. She always feels full. She's eating great food now, but she's eating healthy food, and it's enabling her to be in the best shape of her career. She actually talks about the fact that she feels she's in the best shape of her career, and that's a bit of a concern for everyone in the strawweight division, because Mackenzie Dern, in great shape, improving at the rate that she's improving, with the elite grappling skills that she's got, she is going to be an absolute nightmare at 115 pounds. If she starts ticking every box and firing on all cylinders. So I'm excited to see what we get from Dern this weekend. So that's the first major X factor. How much will the pregnancy affect Mackenzie Dern, right? Because historically it's affected female fighters very badly, but she's looking absolutely incredible, best shape of her career. Maybe it won't affect her. Maybe she'll be the outlier. In terms of who she's been training with for this camp, she said that she's put her own camp together, working with different coaches. She's no longer training with MMA Lab. She is now training somewhat at Black House, but I feel that from the answers that she gave to Ariel Helwani, she's just using Black House Gym as kind of like a base to bring individual coaches in to train her in different aspects of MMA, like Muay Thai, wrestling, etc. She said Bubba Jenkins was her wrestling coach, who's obviously, I believe, NCAA Division 1 level wrestler, and also, he's an MMA fighter in Bellator. So that is X factors for Mackenzie Dern. Although what I would say is, being pregnant for 9 months, having a baby, you wouldn't have expected her to improve that much since her last couple of fights. But you never know, man. You never know. And then X factors for Amanda Ribas. We said earlier on, she's been incredibly inactive over the last 4 years. She only fought one time in the last 3 or 4 years. These fights didn't last very long either, so she doesn't have a lot of real-life competitive experience. She is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, primarily a grappler, and she trains full-time at American Top Team, which is obviously huge. The direct training partner of Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who is also competing on this card in the main event. And I'm sure if we keep scrolling, it wouldn't take us very long to find a picture of her with Joanna Jędrzejczyk and some other female strawweights from ATT. Okay, here we can see a few. Here's Marina Moroz. This is Kayla Harrison, Tisha Torres. Really apologise, I don't recognise the other two girls. So no pictures with there's no pictures with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, as far as I can see, but I'm sure they spend a good amount of time training with her. So obviously ATT is the best gym in the world. Training full-time at a gym like ATT, going to make massive improvements from fight to fight. Jesus Christ, 287,000 followers, and she's had one fight in the UFC, and she's only 7-1. Is this girl famous for something else? So is this like, you know, sometimes when you see like, you know, high-level BJJ practitioners or like kind of like Z-list celebrities get into MMA, how the fuck does she have that many followers? Oh, let's just get rid of this guy. Sorry guys, I took my eyes off the prize. How do I get rid? Guy's being really disruptive. There he goes. He's gone, boys. He's gone. He's gone, I believe. I think he's gone. Should be gone now. Anyway, just cleaning up the chat a little bit. Sorry, boys. All right, we are back on track. Yeah, I wonder if she's famous for something, because to have 287,000 followers is insane. If you know if she's done anything else, like super high level BJJ or something that I'm not aware of, please leave a comment below and let me know, or let me know on Twitch. And yeah, we will try and work out why she is so popular when she is relatively unknown. Anyway, I just want to know in case there's like a massive detail in research that I've completely missed out. Just super suspicious for someone with only one UFC fight to have a following that big. You know, I understand girls like Ariane Lipski and stuff that have been champions in major promotions. Former IMMAF world champion, but that's amateur. Her name's not bringing up a lot, boys. So I'm guessing, don't know, maybe they're fake followers. Maybe she bought them. I'm not sure. I am not sure. So that is it for X Factors, boys. The quality of footage that we have isn't great to work with. But what we will do is get into watching a little bit of a footage from Amanda Ribas. And then we will go in to answer any questions you've got about this fight. But let's just see if we got any questions now before we go into it. Slow22 has said that Mackenzie Dern's husband's a pro surfer. Do they make any money? I'm not sure, man. So I actually forgot to say something. So 13 Kappa has said that after having a baby, he'd expect Mackenzie Dern's pain tolerance to have improved, and he is joking, but it's actually a great point that he's brought up that I forgot to mention. Mackenzie Dern is insanely tough. She is extremely tough. You know, if you go back and watch her fights, she seems to have like a bulletproof mentality, and she talks a little bit about being stubborn on that interview with Ariel Helwani. Remember, I'll link to it in the description below on YouTube. But she is very stubborn, or she talks about herself being very stubborn. So, for example, she said that when she contacted the UFC to say that she wanted to come back and fight after just being out for 4 months, they were reluctant to give her a fight. They said, you know, you should give your body more chance to recover after having a baby, because, you know, we know from other athletes it usually doesn't go well. But Mackenzie Dern said, you know, she's really stubborn, so she pushed them for a fight. And she said that, you know, because she only had a baby 4 months ago, the UFC made her go through all these rigorous medical examinations, that she passed them all. And then in the end, they basically couldn't refuse her a fight. But she was using that as an example of showing that she's stubborn, because even though when, you know, her family were telling her not to take a fight so soon, the UFC were telling her not to take a fight this soon, she still went ahead and did it. So even though you're making a joke about her pain tolerance going up, if you go back and watch her past fights, she is an absolute warrior. And that is one of the things that makes her so good, because we know that, if the best fighters always won, it would be very easy for us to make money, right? It's easy to distinguish who is the better fighter, who is the more technical fighter. We know there's so much more that goes into MMA. There's, heart, toughness, mentality, cardio, right? And Mackenzie Dern is quite a sloppy striker. She doesn't have the best technique when it comes to striking. She doesn't really have any offensive wrestling. But she is very, very mentally strong, very tough. She's the type of girl that when she gets hit, you can see in her face, it's like she gets mad at her opponent for hitting her, and she'll just bite down on that mouthpiece, come forward, and just basically swing for the fences and look to take her opponent's head off. And she's very aggressive. She throws everything into every strike, which is one of the reasons why she was able to drop Amanda Cooper in her last fight. So, she's very, very tough is the point I was trying to make. So trying to oh, there we go, right. So let's see, lots of comments go through here, boys, before we get into watching this fight. MC Kanye's just said that Amanda Ribas has only got 2,000 Twitter followers, so definitely something strange going on there. 287,000 followers on Instagram, 2,000 on Twitter. That is a bit of an anomaly. Lidosis has asked, how big is Dern's ceiling? Do you think she could become a champion? I do, man. I think whenever you reach an elite level of anything, you become very, very good at learning from your mistakes and becoming very good at other stuff. So the fact that Mackenzie Dern is already so great at grappling, she's only 26 years old, she keeps improving at a rapid rate. She could be great. And it appears with the shape that she's in on Instagram, maybe the only thing holding her back was the diet and discipline. And maybe she'll look a hell of a lot better now, because it certainly looks like the diet has completely changed everything about how she trains. And that could indicate it'll change everything about the way she fights too. Yeah, SMB 1984. I can't get near boxing, man. I got my hands full with MMA. I would love to bet boxing. There just are not enough hours in the day, dude. There are not enough hours in the day. I work literally relentlessly, 12-hour days, 6 days a week as it is just to get through MMA. It is absolute murder, dude. So, can't get near MMA, boxing. Right, let's watch this footage. We are going to watch the fight between Amanda Ribas and Jennifer Gonzalez Araneda from Max Fight 18 from back in May 2016. So bear in mind, this fight was over 2.5 years ago, just about. And let's see what we get to learn about Amanda Ribas. So Ribas looks like she is in the yellow and green for the colours of Brazil. Interested to see her striking, because she's primarily a grappler. Striking looked pretty decent. Okay, that's a huge concern. Big red flag for Ribas straight away. So she went for the Paige Van Zandt style head and arm throw, or shall we now call it the Spivak, after the fight against Tuivasa this past weekend. If you do this to Mackenzie Dern, you're getting your back taken and you're getting choked out in like 0.0006 seconds. Like I said earlier on, Mackenzie Dern, the way she took Amanda Cooper's back and slid her arm under the neck, like one of the fastest back takes I've ever seen. And look at this position here. If Ribas just for a fraction of a second exposes this side of her to Mackenzie Dern, she's getting choked out, absolutely no doubt about it. So already massive red flags with Amanda Ribas, all kinds of giant red flags. And we've also seen the Mackenzie Dern's got vicious ground and pound, very, very, very heavy ground and pound from top position. So you definitely don't want to be in this position underneath an elite grappler. either, because there's probably only one way it goes. And I'm just having a feeling of dread that the girl on the bottom isn't Amanda Ribas, but I'm pretty sure she is. The quality of this video is not the best, but I'm sure Ribas is on the bottom. But just to double check, yeah, it looks like Arenado's on top here. Correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat on Twitch, boys. 13 Kappa with another really good point. He said that, Mackenzie Dern might come in with like a mama bear attitude now, and you definitely don't want to fuck with a mother. Do not want to take food off the plate of a mother's child. And, maybe, Mackenzie Dern said it herself in multiple interviews in that Ariel Helwani interview. When she was younger, she liked to party. She wasn't the most disciplined. She didn't have the best diet. Maybe now that she's had a baby, she's got a new purpose, and it has motivated her like never before, and she's going to come into this fight looking 100 times better than she ever has. I could personally tell you that is what changed my life. When my wife got pregnant, we were very young. I didn't have any plans to have a baby at all, and I was working in a supermarket, not even earning like £800 a month. I was basically broke, couldn't even afford to fucking pay gas, electric, put petrol in my car, let alone have a baby to look after. And it was a terrifying time, man. But because it was so scary, and because like now I couldn't just fuck about and barely earn any money, and as long as I had enough money to buy a new video game on payday, I really didn't care. Now being responsible for that baby, it just elevated your work ethic and your ambition, your drive to a whole new level. Like, if I hadn't have had a son so young, I might have wasted fucking years and years and years achieving nothing. But literally, as soon as he was born, I got to work big time. And, I could definitely see that being kind of like the catalyst for Mackenzie Dern tightening everything up, because this is not speculation. She's openly said in interviews in the past she hasn't been the most disciplined, and maybe now after having a baby she realizes her potential and thinks, if I really get after this and start taking the career super seriously and start ticking every box, I can create a great life for my baby. And wouldn't surprise you, man. So the mama bear fact is a real one. That's a great point, 13 Kappa. So they're back up here now. Ribas, her striking is looking, to be quite honest with you, quite bad. Just, stood flat-footed right in front of her opponent. Doesn't appear to really have any power in her hands. Not the best striking defense either. We were being quite critical of Mackenzie Dern's striking, calling it sloppy. But I would say that based on what I'm seeing here, I'd actually say that Dern is the better striker, and not in terms of like, oh, that's just all kinds of bad. We'll stop that there, boys, and talk about that in a minute. I wouldn't say Dern looks as good striking in terms of, Dern's got a really herky-jerky, clumsy, sloppy style of striking, but her style of striking is way more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's got way more intent to it, right? So when you see Amanda Ribas stood right in front of her opponent there, she's throwing like sloppy kicks and punches off balance, and when they land, they don't do that much damage, right? Even though Dern technically might not look as tight, when she lands, it gets the attention of her opponent. She does hit quite hard, because it goes back to what we were saying about her being stubborn and tough. She bites down on her mouthpiece and just fucking puts everything into every shot. And I mean, again, boys, if you do this to Mackenzie Dern, you're getting choked out fast. I mean, this is terrible fight IQ. She's basically given her back to her opponent, and her opponent's been unable to make her pay for it. But against a higher level opponent like Mackenzie Dern, you get choked out. Is this Sergey Spivak's sister? Is she related to Spivak? This is like deja vu. This fight looks like a rerun between Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Spivak. What am I watching? What am I watching here? This is like Spivak against Tuivasa. Bulldog chokes, head and arm throws, all kinds of shit that is bad that you should never do in an MMA fight. Ribas has got it all here. Aggressive from top position, but it's quite clear she's primarily a grappler, and you can't grapple with Mackenzie Dern. She will eat you for breakfast. She will chew you up. She will dominate you. She'll twist you up and tie you up in knots. She'll put you in terrible positions, and it will only be a matter of time before she puts you in a fight-ending situation. Not good. I mean, chipping away with ground and pound from her opponent. Her opponent's fishing for long shot arm bars by the look of it, that she is never going to get way too high up on the elbow of Ribas. Oh, there was a little bit of mount action then. How did she get that? Did she just step over? Knee on belly, just steps over. Wow, so her opponent was showing a really active guard, and then out of nowhere, Ribas was just able to step over into mount. Cool. Let's go into the second round. Is this the second round, or is that? No, that's the replay. This is the second round. And I mean, just a little bit of feedback for the ring girl as well. You've got one job. Buy matching shoes, bro. You can't wear all black and then royal blue shoes. Gotta have all blue or all black. I mean, these are fucking basics, man. What are you doing? You gotta match the shoes. But just small details. We now go into the second round. Let's see if Ribas shows us anything else here. Interesting. Star Costa has just dropped some knowledge in the live chat on Twitch. Don't forget to subscribe if you're watching on Twitch, guys. Subscribe on YouTube as well. Like the video if you haven't already. And as ever, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this fight in the comments below. And you know what? I guess she does it again. Third time. This time straight over into mount. I'm not even going to give her a compliment, boys. She's very lucky. Very, very lucky. Against someone like Dern, she would be unconscious now. So that's Amanda Ribas, right? So at the moment, this is a very, very difficult fight to cap. Very difficult fight to cap. Because we don't really know where both girls are at in their career, right? We don't know how Dern's going to look after having a baby. It certainly has affected other female athletes very, very badly in MMA. At the same time, we've only seen Amanda Ribas fight one time in the last 3 years, and she's primarily a grappler. And guess what's going to happen if you try and grapple with Dern? All kinds of bad things are going to happen to you. But even though she didn't look great in that fight we just watched, she has been training full-time at ATT for the last 3 years, so I'm sure she's improved a lot. Let's read some more comments. Appleman999 has said, would you agree it's more likely that Ribas will have more improvements since her last fight than Dern, as Dern wouldn't have been able to train much while being pregnant? Yeah, for sure, man. I don't really see how Dern would have made many improvements at all since we saw her against Cooper, because, like I say, she was pregnant for 9 months. I mean, what is it now? October 2019. So, if we count backwards, so she had the baby 4 months ago, so that would take us to June, right? So 9 months then previous from June would be January, December, November. So it would actually end up being October, call it October 2018. So between the time that she fought Amanda Cooper and got pregnant is only 5 months. So really there's only 5 months of improvements in there. All the time since having a baby over the last 4 months, you wouldn't have thought she'd be focusing on technique. You'd think she'd be focusing on getting back in fight shape, right? So yeah, absolutely agree with you, dude. Absolutely agree with you, man. 100%. Whereas Amanda Ribas, as we know from her Instagram, she's been at ATT every day, training hard. And ATT, what a gym. What a gym. Okay, so Star Costa's just shared a cool link with us to check out. Let's see what this is. So Amanda Ribas sees 2-year USADA sanction terminated. Very nice share. Nice one, Star Costa. I completely forgot about this. I remember talking about it when I broke down Ribas versus Amanda not Amanda Cooper, Ribas versus Emily Whitmire on a previous breakdown video. So let's read this. So Amanda Ribas was suspended by the United States Anti-Doping Agency for almost 2 years, but that sanction is now being reduced. Interesting, reduced, not completely thrown out. USADA announced Friday that Ribas' 2-year suspension for a positive drug test dating back to June 2017. So that's why she's been inactive. Great find, Stat Costa. So she hasn't fought in this 3-year period here because she actually got suspended by USADA before she even fought for the UFC. Wow. So she must have got popped around the time she was supposed to be fighting Juliana Lima. What happened here? Yes, okay, so interesting. The UFC signed Ribas to fight Juliana Lima, and she got popped by USADA in the lead up to that fight. Interesting. What did she pop for? It has since been determined that the 25-year-old Brazilian's test failure was the result of a contaminated supplement. That old chestnut. Although it seems to be happening to a lot of fighters, so who am I to judge? She becomes the latest fighter to receive a shortened suspension due to the evidence of contamination, joining a long list of fighters that include Sean O'Malley, Nico Montano, Tim Means, Yoel Romero, and John Jones as well, to name but a few. And also Frank Mir is saying that that's the reason why he failed, and also Josh Barnett. Many high-profile fighters. But USADA's statement explains that its decision to terminate Ribas' suspension stems from the likelihood that a positive test result was of an ostarine-contaminated dietary supplement. 4 subsequent tests have returned negative results. I will say this, and I will say this about any fighter. This has nothing to do with Amanda Ribas, but I will say this. Many fighters build their careers taking performance-enhancing drugs. Many fighters on the Brazilian regional MMA circuit take performance-enhancing drugs. And I'm not saying Amanda Ribas did take performance-enhancing drugs, but the timing of her test failure is interesting. Because, say, for example, she was taking PEDs throughout her career on the regional Brazilian MMA circuit and got signed by the UFC, might have not had time to get off the gear. I don't know. The details, it's just something to think about. It's possible Ribas might have built a career on PEDs, and I would say that about anyone. It has nothing to do with Ribas. If I was talking about Yoel Romero or Tim Means or, Sean O'Malley or Josh Barnett or any of these other fighters that have had run-ins with USADA over tainted supplements, I would give the same possible explanation. It's just playing devil's advocate, right? You make your own mind up. So, with that being said, I think that's going to be it, boys, really. I mean, to summarise, I think it's quite straightforward. How can you bet this fight, really? I mean, we don't know what impact having a baby is going to have on Mackenzie Dern, even though she looks incredible on Instagram and she's saying all the right things in the interview with Ariel Helwani, although you'd expect her to say all the right things. Fighters always do. I mean, we were talking a little bit about it in the breakdown last week for Whittaker against Adesanya. Whittaker said, the injuries won't affect me, that layoff won't affect me, the sickness won't affect me, and maybe they didn't. Maybe that was Whittaker at his best. But fighters always tell you what you want to hear. How many times, if we forget about Whittaker and Adesanya and use an example from this card, how many times, we've got some great examples on this card of how you should never believe what fighters tell you. So the first great one is James Vick, where for years and years, throughout his entire career, he used to look like a skeleton on weigh-in day, and he would tell every single reporter and journalist during fight week that the weight cut to 155 wasn't a problem for him. He's fine fighting at 155. He doesn't need to move up to 170. It wasn't affecting him. And then we knew as he kept cutting to 155, he looked worse and worse and became chinnier and chinnier and chinnier. And now finally he's moved up to 170. So in the past, if you would have listened to him in an interview, you would have thought that the cut to 155 wasn't a problem if you would have believed what he said. But in actual fact, it's clear that it was quite a big problem. And then another example, who can forget when Luis Pena moved down to featherweight to fight Steven Peterson at £145, which is insane considering he's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. To put that into perspective with you, that would be a good wingspan for a heavyweight. I mean, if you were 6'3" with a 78-inch reach in the heavyweight division, you'd be huge. You'd be one of the bigger heavyweights. That's how big that wingspan is. And yet this guy dropped to £145 to fight Steven Peterson. And back then, if you would have looked at all of the Fight Week interviews with the journalists with Luis Pena, he would say it's an easy cut to 145. I'm not going to have any problems making weight. And what happened? He missed weight by 2.5 pounds. So he actually missed weight. He weighed in at 148.5 after saying the weight cut would be absolutely no problem. And also he looked very slow, very stiff, very sluggish. A lot more stiff and sluggish and slow than usual. And then with his tail between his legs, he had to move back up to lightweight for his last fight. So don't believe what fighters tell you, man. Mackenzie Dern is saying she's never felt better. The pregnancy won't affect her, yada, yada, yada. Don't listen to what fighters say in interviews. It's all bollocks. It is all absolute bollocks, boys. So yeah, also on the other side, cannot bet Amanda Ribas because she looked very, very bad in her fight against Araneda. If she makes those same mistakes against Mackenzie Dern, she's going to get choked unconscious. And we only have 8 minutes of footage on her since that fight to be able to gauge the level of skills she's going to be coming into this fight with. And we can't learn anything from that 8 minutes because it was quite a dominant performance. Like I say, she had full control of Whitmire's back for a good 3 or 4 minutes. What I can say is that the Ribas that fought Whitmire looked a hell of a lot slicker on the ground than the Ribas that fought Araneda. But of course you would expect that with 3 years of improvements, training at the best MMA gym in the world under some of the best MMA coaches in the world. So this is a clear pass from me. I have no interest in betting this fight. There are no strong positions. I mean, we can look at the odds. Both girls are roughly around about even. Ribas a slight underdog. Mackenzie Dern up to around 1.80 on some sites, which is minus 125. There are no strong positions on this fight. It is a very easy pass. But if you disagree, let me know in the comments below. Even though I don't always have a chance to respond to every comment, I read them all. And please hit the like button if you like this video. I am actually going to come back within the next hour and do a second live research video where we are going to be breaking down one of the more interesting fights on this card. I'm going to take a very deep dive into Cub Swanson against Crone Gracie. I will be back on Twitch in the next hour to do a live research video for that fight, so don't miss out. Very, very strong possibility we will have a bet on that fight as well. So don't miss out if you want to get my first access to my thoughts on that fight when we start going back and watching some footage on Crone. But that is going to be it for this video, boys. I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you come back for the next live stream in the next hour. Take care, and I will speak to you all very, very soon.